Welcome to The Power of Tax Defense Attorneys, Tax Corner with Juda Gabaie.
Welcome to The Power of Tax Defense Attorneys, Tax Corner with Juda Gabaie. I'm your host, Sophia Morales, and today's episode is What to Do If You Owe the IRS, Understanding Collection Notices and Your Rights. Welcome back to the show, Juda. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophia. I really appreciate it.
So let's take a theoretical situation. Imagine I just got a big fat envelope from the IRS detailing a tax debt. What is the absolute first thing that I need to do? The non-negotiable thing?
Excellent question. I would say that the first non-negotiable thing that one should do is obviously open the letter, read it thoroughly. Do not ignore it. Do not set it aside or assume it's a mistake. Understand the specific notice number. And then reach out to a tax professional as soon as possible. Usually those letters have some sort of deadlines, either 10 days or 30 days or 60 days.
Yeah, I think it's real tempting to kind of put it to the side and hope it goes away.
Right.
So when the IRS sends out a collection notice, they send out a variety of different types. Can you break down the key types of notices that one could expect to see in regular English and explain what each one really means to the taxpayer?
Yes. So there are a few important notices that the IRS sends out. Usually those are CP14. That's a balance due notice. Then you have, when it goes to collection, you have CP 501, 503s, 504. 504 is usually where it's a threatening notice, indicating, intent to seize or levy. And then you also have the certified mail ones. Those tend to be LT11, 1058, CP90. Those are important notices. Those are usually giving you 30 days to get into some sort of resolution before the IRS takes enforcement action. Usually enforcement action will be, levies, garnishments, and liens. So those are, important notices, but those notices don't just happen overnight. It takes some time for the IRS to send out those notices.
I was going to ask you that. Is this something that you see like a ramp up in this series of notices?
Usually it's like a ramp up, but it takes time. Usually they send you one notice, and then after that it gets more threatening. And then once you ignore those notices, then that's when the IRS will start taking collection action. So it's important to be on the lookout for those.
Is that commonly the case, that if you respond to the initial notices, you don't have to get the scarier ones later?
Right. So if you get into a resolution, usually pretty quickly, then you won't get those threatening ones. Some of them even give you the rights to file an appeal. So if it gets that far, generally we may have to file an appeal. And an appeal is usually very important, and it all depends on the taxpayer, on the facts and circumstances. But definitely, IRS notices are not not the notices that you want to ignore.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So what should your first reaction be when you get one of these notices?
So I think for the moment it lands in somebody's mailbox, in a taxpayer's mailbox, you should definitely, obviously, take a look at it and then reach out to a tax professional. Usually when it's threatening notices, reach out to a tax attorney, someone that specializes in that field. And that's important because they have the knowledge. They understand. That's what they deal with every single day, day in, day out. So it's important to get someone that's all they deal with is, it's tax issues, tax controversy.
Yeah, I would imagine. So I know it's tempting a lot of times when you're getting these notices, maybe because you weren't able to pay or something like that, to think that, well, maybe I can resolve this on my own without having to spend a bunch of money. Do you have any advice for someone who may be considering that route?
Yes. Generally, you want to work with a tax professional because they know the ins and outs. And that's important. The tax professional can determine whether the assessment is correct. And if the assessment is correct, is there any sort of waiver for penalties? Or is there a way to do a settlement with the government? So that's very important. There are standards that an individual or business can take in order to help them for that resolution with the IRS or the state. So it is important. I would say that most of my clients, if not a majority, 95% of them are very happy when they retain our office, because at the end of the day, besides the service, they're saving something, right? One way or another, we try to help them, relieve them of this debt, or try to work to get them into a resolution. And there's various resolution, and we'll make a determination and see what's the best resolution for that individual or business.
Yeah, kind of the worst case scenario is what's spelled out in the notice, I would imagine.
Sometimes it could be worse. Sometimes
Yeah. Oh, okay.
it could be a levy, or it could be a
Mhm.
garnishment, and then it could be a
Yeah.
lien. So it all depends.
Yeah, but I would imagine a professional can help you mitigate what that looks like on the surface.
100%.
Yeah. So from the moment something like this lands in your mailbox, how quickly are you potentially facing serious enforcement actions like garnishment, asset seizure, that sort of thing?
Usually it's supposed to give about 30 days. So usually it could be about 30 to 60 days. I've seen some notices it could be after 10 days. So
Wow.
on the notices itself, it will say, please respond by, and it'll give you a date when to respond by.
Mm,
But usually it's about
okay.
30 to 60 days.
Okay, so you've got a little bit of time to get your ducks in a row and do something
Yes.
about it. What are the most common pitfalls or missteps that you see people make when they try to navigate these IRS things and resolve the issues on their own?
The most common one is just ignoring the notice, right? In the beginning, when you get that notice, it's a shock. You're like, okay, I'll take care of it. But then eventually you just push it down the road. That's number one. And number two is, panicking or making a rash decision. Sometimes it
Mm,
makes sense to, pull everything together and see what is going on. Another one is calling the IRS without preparation, right? Without knowing,
mm,
what that specific notice is or what you want to achieve. That's important. Or another one is, failure to keep the records. Maybe you don't have some of the records, or those are the common pitfalls. I mean, missing deadlines, another one that we've seen a lot of times where taxpayers come to us after so many deadlines are missed. So there's those common ones that it's important to try to avoid, obviously, and reaching out to some sort of tax professional, is usually the best thing and one of the first steps to do.
So, if somebody has maybe made a couple of these missteps and they're feeling buried under a mountain of IRS letters that are getting increasingly threatening, how do you empower them to regain control in that situation?
So generally what we do is individuals or businesses will probably come to us sometimes and they have unfiled or unpaid taxes for a number of years, and it feels very overwhelming. And one of the first things to do, and I always tell this to taxpayers, is let's take it one step at a time, right? Let's see what the liabilities are. Let's see if the liabilities are correct. Let's take a look at the penalties and interest. Let's take a look at the statute of limitation. Let's have you fill out a financial, see where you stand. You take it one step at a time. If you try to feel that, oh my gosh, it's so much, of course it's going to feel like that, right? Because the
Yeah.
fact is, this has been accumulating for a number of years sometimes, right? And then trying to get it all resolved in one shot can be very overwhelming. So it's important, to take it one step at a time, address one, you know, agency at a time, IRS, then the state. These it's important to take a look at that. Generally, the first thing is you'll do the research. You'll take a look and see what needs to be done. Do we need to get a hold on the account? Is there unfiled returns? Are there returns that are not correct? Are there estimates? To regain control of the situation is one step at a time, and then go from there.
Yeah. That's how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
Right.
So, when you're faced with this kind of collection activity from the IRS, it can kind of feel like you don't have any rights. Are there some key rights that individuals should be aware they have?
There is this Bill of Rights that the IRS has, the right to be informed, the right of quality service, the right to pay no more than what the correct amount of tax is, the right to challenge the IRS position and be heard, the right to appeal, the right to finality, the right to privacy, the right to confidentiality, the right to retain a representation, So there's a lot of rights out there, and it's very important to utilize these rights to your benefit to try to get your tax liability into some sort of resolution. So it's very important.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot more rights than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, it's called the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So it's important to utilize it.
I love that. So, what's your advice for someone who's maybe been avoiding this IRS situation and kind of dodging the mail for months or even years and feel lost on where to begin?
First thing is, gather all the mail together, because I have clients that come to me with stack of mail over the years. So gather all those together. No matter how old or intimidating the notices are, it's very good to have those notices, because it'll help us right away to understand what the situation is. Do not try to understand all of it immediately, because what's going to happen is you're going to overwhelm yourself, right? You're going to look at this. You're going to take a look at this notice. This is a CP 504. This one could be an LT 11. This could be a CP 2000. It's just too much, right?
Yeah, it starts to
So
seem like alphabet soup.
exactly, right. The goal is to really organize it and just have it all ready. If you prioritize it by date, that would be even great. And then the next step is, seek a professional as soon as possible. The most important thing is to get a professional right away, because right now you're not playing defense or offense, right? And you got to start doing something. You want to be proactive. And the longer it takes to get this resolved, the more expensive and harder it gets, because the government is playing offense and you're not playing defense or offense. So it's very important to get ahead of it as soon as possible. Get a professional so you can get at least some sort of hold on the account and see what's going on and what needs to be done in order to get it resolved once and for all. So that's very important.
What are some of the qualities someone should look for in a tax professional when you have one of these messy situations going on?
It's important to get to hire or look out for someone that's all they do. They're located, in the city or county where you live in, right? That's important, just in case if you need to meet with the IRS, you need to meet with the revenue officer or appeals or the auditor. Those are important. Hire somebody that's all they do day in, day out, right? If you're going to a doctor for heart surgery, you're not going to a general doctor, right? You're going to a cardiologist. Same thing. When it comes to, tax issue, go to a tax attorney, not to a general practitioner or a practitioner that practices other areas of the law too, in addition to tax. Because it's important, because that person will understand the tax much better, because that's all they do day in, day out. They actually, in a way, specialized in that area. So I would say that's one of the most important advice that I can give, is that, go to someone that specializes in that area.
I think that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all this wisdom with us today, Judah.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
And thanks for listening to The Power of Tax Defense Attorneys, Tax Corner with Juda Gabaie. To connect with Judah, visit reliabletaxattorney.com. And remember to leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and review whenever you get a chance to listen to the podcast. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.